They came in the black of the void, no warning, no signal, just the cold mass of their ships slipping past the outer sentry lines. The bastards must have been watching us for years, maybe decades, waiting for the moment when Earth was weakest. They got it wrong. The first transmission was a demand, if you could call it that. No language, just an image burned into every satellite and comms network we had. An alien warlord standing over a burning human city, a show of force, a declaration of ownership. I was at Fort Wallace, Orbital Infantry Division, when the order came down. My name's Jack Reaver, Sergeant First Class. I'd been in the Mars forward recon for 10 years, long enough to know when a fight wasn't going to be fair. Problem was, this one wasn't fair for them. "Reaver," my CO barked. "Suit up. The bastards made their first move. They took Europa Station." Europa? Over 1,000 civilians gone in minutes. Vaporized. The news hit Earth like a punch to the gut, and just like that, the politicians who'd preached peace talks shut the hell up. Now it was up to men like me to speak for humanity. We launched from the Mars Orbital Railgun Station within 24 hours. 6 drop carriers, each packed with 3 squads of hardened veterans. The plan was simple. Intercept the alien flotilla before they could push past Mars and hit the inner system. Kill them in space. No quarter. The bastards had sleek, organic-looking ships, like giant bone constructs wrapped in shimmering dark metal. We called them Reapers. Fitting name, considering what they'd done at Europa. 30 seconds to breach, came the pilot's voice in my ear. I checked my rifle, a Gauss repeater designed to punch through starship armor at close range. The men around me were silent, focused. No bravado, no speeches. We'd seen too much for that. The breach pods slammed into their lead destroyer with bone-jarring force. The instant the hull cracked, we poured in. 30 men, fully armed, facing whatever alien hell waited inside. And hell it was. They weren't tall or elegant like in the old science fiction flicks. No, these things were brutal, insectoid, with blade arms and chitin plates thicker than steel, but they bled. Oh, they bled. "Light 'em up!" I shouted. The first wave went down fast. Explosive rounds tore through their ranks. But they kept coming, hissing and screeching in a sound that felt like it crawled into your skull. We pushed hard, room by room, corridor by corridor, leaving mangled alien corpses in our wake. My HUD counted the minutes. We had 15 before the rest of the fleet arrived. Then came the real fight. The alien commander, a towering brute twice my size, met us in the central reactor core. It cut down Corporal Briggs with one sweep of its blades. I'll never forget the sound of Briggs's scream, or the rage that followed. I didn't think. I moved. Slammed 3 repeater bursts into its chest. It staggered, but didn't fall. The bastard lunged, and I barely rolled aside. My blade found a gap beneath its neck and drove deep. One twist, a gush of black blood. The thing collapsed at my feet. "Core secured!" I yelled. "Set the charges!" We weren't there to capture. We were there to send a message. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. They came to conquer Earth. We were going to turn them to dust before they ever saw her skies. The charges blew as we launched back to the drop carriers. One alien destroyer gone. The others saw what happened. And for the first time, they hesitated. They weren't used to prey fighting back. As we regrouped above Mars, intel poured in. Ground stations, intercepts, chatter from the enemy fleet. The invaders had lost their momentum. They were pulling back to regroup at the asteroid belt. I looked at the men beside me. Grimy, bloodied, alive. "We're not done," I said. "We take the fight to them, out there." I pointed past Mars, into the black where their fleet was hiding. Because this wasn't just survival anymore. Now it was war. The war room aboard the carrier Iron Fang was dim, lit only by tactical screens and the dull red glow of emergency lighting. No one trusted full lights, since we learned those alien bastards could hijack visual systems. Another lesson, written in blood back at Europa. I stood with Captain Harlan, a grim old bastard with iron in his spine and no patience for politics. Men like him were the reason Earth still had a fighting chance. "They've fallen back to the belt," Harlan said, tapping the holomap with a scarred finger. "Main force regrouping behind Ceres. Looks like they're trying to stage a second wave." "Should have finished them when we had the chance," I muttered. "You want to chase them into an asteroid field blind?" Harlan shot me a glare. "I'll take guts, Reaver, but I won't throw men away." He had a point. The belt was hell to navigate even without hostiles. But time wasn't on our side. Word had it Earth's defense grid was only weeks from collapse. The alien vanguard had already wrecked half our satellite network and left major cities in panic. If their second wave reached Earth orbit, millions would die, maybe billions. "We go after them," I said, voice low but steady. "But we do it smart." Harlan studied me for a long moment. "You've got something in mind?" "Yeah." I leaned in, pointing to the tactical display. "We bait them. They want Mars. Let's make them think we're pulling our fleet back to defend it. Meanwhile, we slip a strike team through the belt, hit their command ship where it hurts." Harlan gave a dry chuckle. "You volunteering?" "Always." "Good. You'll take Ravager 1. Stealth gunship, experimental cloaking. She's not on the books yet. 1 squad, no backup." I nodded. "I'll handpick the men." "You'd better. Once you're in that field, no one's coming to save you." We launched within hours. The Ravager 1 was a sleek predator of a ship. Dark hull, minimal emissions, designed for one purpose: strike hard, strike fast, disappear. She could carry 10 men max. I chose 9 of the meanest sons of bitches I knew. Sergeant Kane, my second, all muscle and dead eyes, ex-Marine turned orbital shock trooper. Corporal Juno, marksman, no nerves, steady hands even when the sky's falling. Private Mason, engineer and demolitions, ugly as sin, but he could blow a hole in God's own vault. And 6 more veterans who didn't blink when I told them what we were walking into. "Listen up," I said as we loaded in. "This isn't a rescue op. It's not a goddamn recon. We're going in to gut their command ship, cut the snake's head off before it can strike again." "Suicide mission," Mason muttered with a crooked grin. "Yeah," Kane said, checking his rifle. "But if we pull it off, Earth lives another day." No one argued. We strapped in. The Ravager launched in silence, slipping past Mars orbit under cloak. No communications, no signals, just the cold hum of engines and the dark between the stars. The asteroid field was a graveyard. We drifted past shattered rocks the size of cities, debris from the first clashes, burned out human carriers, drifting alien wrecks, corpses frozen in the void. "Picking up movement," Juno whispered from the sensor station. "Multiple alien patrol ships, light corvettes." "Hold course," I ordered. "Keep cloak engaged. We ghost past them." We weaved through the field, engines throttled to minimal thrust. The aliens were hunting for us, but their tech wasn't perfect. They couldn't track what they couldn't see. And then we found it. Floating behind a shielded cluster of asteroids was their command ship, a leviathan of black and bone, half the size of a human city, bristling with weapons, escorted by a dozen smaller warships. "Son of a bitch," Mason breathed. "That thing's a fortress." "It bleeds like anything else," I said. We get in close, dock at one of their maintenance shafts, plant charges, kill their command crew. "Stealth approach in that mess?" Kane asked. "We don't need to be perfect," I said. "We just need one opening." It came faster than we hoped. One of their corvettes strayed too close to a debris cluster and triggered a chain reaction. Colliding asteroids smashed through their formation. In the chaos, we slipped through, engines flaring only for a heartbeat. We latched onto a vent shaft on the Leviathan's lower hull. Mason cut through the seal with practiced speed. "Move out," I ordered. We entered a world of alien metal and shadows. The air smelled of ozone and something fouler, like rotting meat. "Keep it tight," Kane whispered. Corridors twisted in impossible geometry, walls pulsing with bioluminescence, alien script running in streams of light. We advanced methodically, rifles up, safeties off. First contact came fast. 2 insectoid sentries rounding a corner. I dropped one with a clean burst to the head. Kane took the second before it could sound an alarm. "Mark this corridor," I said. "We'll need a clean exit." We reached the core chamber after 20 brutal minutes. The place looked like a cathedral of bone and circuitry, an altar to some alien god of war. And at the center stood their commander. Not just a brute this time. This one was a tactician, clad in ornate armor, flanked by elite guards twice the size of the ones we'd fought before. Intelligent eyes, cold, calculating. "They know we're here," Juno said. "Doesn't matter," I replied. "We finish this." The fight was chaos. Gunfire and plasma lit the chamber. Mason's charges tore through the first wave of guards. Juno picked off targets with sniper precision, but they kept coming. I locked eyes with the alien commander. He hissed, a sound that shook the room. Then he charged. I met him head-on. He was faster than I expected, blade arms striking with brutal speed. My rifle was torn from my grip. I drew my sidearm, fired point-blank into his torso. Black ichor sprayed, but he didn't fall. He slammed me into the wall, blade sinking into my shoulder. Pain exploded through me, but I held on, grabbed the blade's hilt, twisted hard. The alien reeled. Kane tackled him next, slamming a combat knife into the creature's throat. Together we drove it down, until the light finally faded from its eyes. Silence fell. "Charges set?" I gasped. "All over the core," Mason panted. "We've got 5 minutes." "Then let's move." We sprinted back through the corridors, bloodied and low on ammo. Alarms screamed across the Leviathan. More hostiles swarmed from every direction. "Cut left," I shouted, "through the vent shaft." We fought every inch, Juno's last clip taking down 3 pursuers, Kane carrying a wounded Private Ellis over his shoulder. I was bleeding out, vision swimming, but I wouldn't fall here. Not now. The Ravager waited, engines hot. We launched the second we docked, shields flaring as the Leviathan's weapons opened fire. Then the charges blew. A chain reaction of explosions ripped through the alien ship. The core detonated, fire and debris erupting into space. The Leviathan split apart, its escorts scattering. Cheers broke out in the cabin, but I didn't celebrate yet. "Set course for Mars," I rasped. "We're not done." As we limped back through the field, intel came in from Harlan's fleet. The alien forces were in full retreat. Without their command ship, their formation had crumbled. Human forces were pressing the advantage. The war wasn't won. Not yet. But for the first time, we had bloodied them so badly they couldn't ignore it. We'd proven one thing. They came to conquer Earth. But humanity turns its enemies to dust before they even reach her skies. The Ravager 1 docked at Fort Wallace's orbital hangar to a silent crowd. No fanfare, no brass bands, just soldiers, engineers, and grim-faced officers watching us limp off that ship. We looked like hell. Kane had 3 broken ribs. Mason's arm was a mess of burns. I was patched with 6 sealants. My shoulder barely held together. Half my squad had fresh scars. 2 men hadn't made it back. Private Ellis bled out en route. Corporal Reyes vaporized during the blast. War takes its price, always. Captain Harlan met us at the bay. His jaw clenched when he saw the state we were in, but his eyes burned with something else. Pride, maybe, our hunger for more blood. "You did it," he said. No speech, just 3 words. Enough. "They won't stay down long," I said, voice hoarse. "Their second wave is still massing. We bought time, but that's it." "Then we use it," Harlan motioned for us to follow. "Command's moving fast. We're going to hit them first this time." The War Council convened within the hour. Top brass from Earth's Unified Defense Command beamed in. Generals, admirals, intelligence heads. For once, the politicians weren't in the room. Good. They'd only slow us down. Harlan stood at the front, flanked by me and a few other unit commanders. He pointed to the holomap. Asteroid belt, Mars orbit, Earth's battered defense lines. The alien fleet had fragmented after we took out their command ship, but now new signals showed massive movement near the outer planets. "They're regrouping near Jupiter's moons," Harlan said. "Intel confirms a second command vessel en route, bigger than the last. Heavier armament. They plan to bypass Mars entirely. Direct strike on Earth." A murmur went through the room. "How long?" a general asked. 5 days, maybe less," Harlan replied. "We either stop them at Jupiter or we fight them in Earth orbit." That wasn't an option. Earth's orbital grid was crippled. Half our rail platforms were down. Global defense satellites shot to hell. The alien fleet hits Earth orbit? Cities would burn. "Then we hit them first," I said. Harlan nodded. "Agreed. Strike Force will deploy within 24 hours. Volunteers only." I was already moving before he finished speaking. Back at the barracks, I found Kane sitting on his bunk, bandaged ribs, rifle across his lap. "You in?" I asked. He grinned through the pain. "You even need to ask?" One by one, I gathered the squad. Juno. Mason. Arm in a sling, but already rewiring demo charges. A few replacements for the men we'd lost. Young, eager, not stupid. They knew what they were walking into. By nightfall, we were prepped. We launched on the ISS Valkyrie, a retrofitted heavy cruiser with teeth, plasma torpedoes, rail cannons, point defense turrets. She was slower than the Ravager, but she could punch. Fleet Command sent 6 more ships with us, 3 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and a stealth frigate. Not enough to match the alien numbers, but enough for a precision strike. "Remember," Harlan said over fleet comms, "this isn't about winning the whole war today. It's about making sure their second wave never reaches Earth. Our target was the new command ship, a monstrous dreadnought codenamed Leviathan Prime. Bigger, smarter, deadlier. We had one shot. The approach to Jupiter was rough. Radiation storms battered our shields. Alien scout ships prowled the system, but our stealth screen held. Then we saw it. Hanging in the shadow of Ganymede, a behemoth of black and crimson metal, flanked by 2 escort carriers and a swarm of fighters. "They learn fast," Kane muttered. "That's a lot of guns." "Won't save them," I said. "Orders are in." We punched through. Disable that dreadnought. No fallback. Battle began with fire and fury. Our fleet hit them first. Long-range torpedoes streaking in, rail cannons thundering. The aliens answered with pulse blasts and swarming fighters. Space lit up like a second sun. "Brace!" the Valkyrie's captain shouted as a pulse beam grazed our port side. Hull shook. Panels burst. But we held course. "Target lock on the dreadnought," Juno called out. "Fire everything," Kane barked. Missiles screamed through the void. The Leviathan's shields flared, absorbing most, but cracks showed. For the first time, the bastards looked vulnerable, but they weren't passive anymore. Enemy fighters swarmed us. One cruiser lost power, venting atmosphere. Another torn apart by plasma lances. On the Valkyrie, we fought from the gun decks. Manual override as targeting systems flickered under alien jamming. Kane manned the rail cannon. Juno picked off fighters with anti-craft turrets. I coordinated strike patterns, shouting over comms. It was slaughter on both sides. Then came the breakthrough. A gap in their formation opened. One of their escort carriers disabled by coordinated fire. Push through, I yelled. Get us in boarding range. The Valkyrie surged forward, shields barely holding. We skimmed the Leviathan's hull, close enough to see alien glyphs scorched by our guns. Grapples fired. Boarding tubes locked on. Squad, move out, I ordered. We breached into hell. Inside the Leviathan, gravity was distorted. Half the squad vomited from disorientation. Air was thick with chemical stink. The walls pulsed, alive with alien tech. Stay sharp, Kane growled. We advanced through shifting corridors, fighting every step. Alien warriors hit us in waves, faster, meaner than before. Blade arms, acid spit, some with energy shields. We fought tooth and nail. Juno's rifle dropped 2 at a cross junction. Mason's demo charges cleared another path. I lost 2 men in the first 10 minutes. Ambushed, no time to save them. But we pressed on. Reaching the command core felt like crawling through a meat grinder. Alarms blared. Drones flooded the corridors. Kane took a blade to the leg but kept moving. I was bleeding again, shrapnel in my side. Finally, core chamber. Bigger than the last. Alien command staff already waiting. Their new commander towered over the rest. Massive, armored, glowing eyes full of malice. It spoke, not words, images, burning cities, dead earth, domination. I spat blood. Not today. The fight was savage. We used everything. Guns, blades, fists. Mason planted charges mid-battle. Juno dropped the commander's guards with precision shots. Then the commander came for me. It moved like a storm. Fast. Brutal. My rifle was knocked aside. Blades flashed. I blocked, barely. Pain shot through me. Kane dragged me clear, firing point blank. The alien reeled. Mason's voice crackled. Charges set! 10 seconds! I looked at the wounded, at the dead. No time. Fall back, I shouted. We ran, carrying who we could. Explosions ripped behind us. The dreadnought shook. Back on the Valkyrie, we disengaged as the Leviathan Prime tore itself apart, fireballs blooming in Jupiter's shadow. Fleet comms erupted with cheers. They're breaking off, came the report. Alien fleet retreating. Earth is safe. For now. In the aftermath, as I lay in med bay, patched and bleeding, Kane sat beside me. We did it, he said. For now, I whispered. They'll come again. He nodded. Then we'll be ready. Because they came to conquer Earth. But humanity? We turned them to dust. I didn't sleep for days after Jupiter. None of us did. What we'd done was historic, crippling the second alien Leviathan before it reached Earth. But victory was a fleeting thing in this war. The enemy wasn't beaten. Not yet. We'd delayed the inevitable, and they knew it too. The intercepts started coming in 2 days after we limped back to Mars orbit. Scrambled transmissions, alien war songs, if you could call them that, rhythmic, guttural pulses sent across every open channel, a declaration. They weren't retreating. They were calling in reinforcements. I sat alone in the Valkyrie's observation deck, nursing a cracked rib and a whiskey ration. The stars looked the same as always. Cold. Endless. But I'd seen too much to pretend the void was empty anymore. Footsteps behind me. You look like hell, Kane said, dropping into the seat opposite me. He had a fresh scar across his jaw and walked with a limp now. So do you. He grinned. Commander Harlan wants you in the war room. High Command's here. That can't be good. When is it ever? The war room was packed when I got there. Harlan stood at the head of the table, flanked by Earth's highest-ranking officers. Some I recognized, Admiral Vasquez, General Harper. The rest were spooks and intelligence brass. On the holoscreen hung a new image, an alien dread fleet, dozens of ships, massing beyond Saturn's rings. New enemy formation, Harlan said, voice hard. They're pulling ships from outside our system now. Deep space assets we haven't seen before. Bigger, faster, heavily shielded. How long before they move? Admiral Vasquez asked. 2 weeks, maybe less. A cold weight settled in my gut. And Earth? I asked. If we don't stop them at Saturn, they'll reach Earth orbit with full strength. Our planetary defenses can't take that kind of pounding. Everyone knew it. Earth's rail platforms were still half offline. Orbital batteries strained to keep Mars protected. Our fleet was battered. We'd taken losses we couldn't replace. So this was it. The next battle would decide everything. We hit them first, Harlan said. All strike groups, coordinated assault. It's a death charge, one intelligence officer muttered. They're numbers. We don't have a choice. Harlan slammed his fist on the table. We stand at Saturn, or Earth burns. The room went silent. Then I spoke. We don't just hit their fleet, I said. We go deeper. Heads turned. What do you mean, Reaver? Harlan asked. They're pulling these ships from somewhere, outside our system. Supply lines, command infrastructure. We cut that. We cripple their advance. It was a mad plan, but no one argued. Within 48 hours, I was back aboard the Ravager 1. She'd been patched, refitted with the latest cloak tech. Lighter weapons this time, more speed, more stealth. My squad was leaner now. Kane, Juno, Mason, 3 new operators, fresh but experienced, pulled from Mars Black Ops. Our mission: infiltrate the alien staging base beyond Saturn, gather intel, sabotage whatever we could. Think they'll expect us this time? Kane asked as we prepped. They should, I said, but that's never stopped us. The approach was the tensest I'd ever flown. The Ravager drifted through Saturn's rings like a ghost. Static fields and asteroid shadows masked our entry. Beyond the rings, we saw it. A massive alien station. Half-constructed, bristling with weapon ports and docking arms. Around it, a skeletal fleet. Freighters, cruisers, unfinished dreadnoughts. This is where they're building their next wave, Juno whispered. I nodded. We take it apart. We latched onto the station's outer superstructure, cutting through hull plating. Inside was a twisted maze of scaffolding, pulsating tech, and swarming engineers, smaller alien breeds we hadn't seen before. Builders, fast and skittering. We plant charges in the main conduits, I ordered. Gather whatever data you can, fast and silent. The first hour went smooth. We moved like shadows, avoiding patrols, planting charges. Then it went to hell. One of the new operators, rookie named Grayson, triggered a motion sensor. Alarms shrieked. The whole station lit red. Move, I shouted. We finished the job. What followed was chaos. Alien guards poured from every hatch, blade-limbed, faster than the warriors on the dreadnoughts. We fought through them, room by room. Juno dropped 2 with precise headshots. Kane took a hit to the shoulder but kept firing. I dragged Mason out of a collapsing corridor, blood slicking the floor beneath us. "Charges armed!" Mason gasped. "We need to go! Now!" Escape was a running gunfight. We sprinted for the docking shaft, cutting through wave after wave. Kane nearly bled out, dragging Juno's body when she took a plasma burn to the chest. I covered them, emptying my rifle into the last pack of hostiles. Then the Ravager launched, barely clearing the blast radius as our charges blew. The alien station erupted, a chain reaction ripping through its core. Alien comms spiked in panic. Their staging base was gone. Their fleet left leaderless, scattered. When we returned to Mars orbit, battered and bleeding, the fleet was already mobilizing. Harlan met us at the dock. "You did it," he said. "Their reinforcement line is shattered." "They'll still come," I warned. "Desperate now." "I know." The final orders came that night. "All forces to Saturn. Full strike. No retreat." It would be the last stand. I sat with Kane and the others in the Valkyrie's briefing room, going over battle plans. "Think we survive this?" Mason asked. Kane grinned, blood in his teeth. "Does it matter?" I shook my head. Number, all that matters is we make them bleed. 2 days later, the fleet jumped. Saturn's space became a slaughterhouse. Hundreds of ships, ours and theirs, collided in brutal close-quarters combat. Rail cannons tore through hulls. Plasma blasts shattered entire squadrons. Fighter wings danced between debris fields. I fought from the Valkyrie's decks, directing strikes, leading boarding teams when hulls locked. Kane fought beside me, arm in a sling but still killing. Mason planted charges on enemy gun decks. Juno, scarred but alive, picked targets through the chaos. We lost friends, ships, entire battalions. But we broke them. One by one, their ships burned, their formations shattered. And when the last dreadnought fled into the black, we stood, bloodied, broken but unbowed. The war wasn't over. But Earth would see another sunrise, and the message was clear. They came to conquer Earth. We turned them to dust. The weeks after Saturn were a blur of blood and exhaustion. The battle had been the costliest in human history. Entire fleet groups wiped from the sky. Half of Mars' orbital defense ring gone. Earth's last functional rail cannons down to 30%. We'd won the battle, sure, but the war, that was still hanging by a thread. The enemy wasn't finished. They couldn't push forward after Saturn. Not yet. But we'd intercepted their final transmissions, calls for reinforcements, desperate and angry. There were still more of them out there. Bigger ships, worse weapons. And they were coming. I stood on the outer observation deck of Fort Wallace, staring at Earth through the reinforced glass. It looked fragile from here. A pale blue sphere, battered by orbital debris, and the blackness creeping ever closer. Billions down there, still living their lives, most of them blissfully ignorant of how close we'd come to losing it all. Kane joined me, limping from his wounds. "You hear the news?" he asked. "What now?" "Command intercepted a deep space signal. Real long-range stuff. Not from Saturn, further." I turned, pulse quickening. "How far?" "Deep Kuiper, outer system. They're calling in something big." My stomach turned. I'd fought them at Europa, at Mars, at Jupiter, at Saturn. Each time they adapted got nastier. If they were pulling forces from the edge of the system now, whatever came next would make the Leviathan look like a toy. "How long?" I asked. "Month. Maybe 2. I exhaled slowly. Not long enough. In the days that followed, the mood on Fort Wallace shifted. No more victory speeches. No more "we've got this" bravado. Everyone knew what was coming. The blackest fleet yet. High Command issued the new op orders, Operation Black Spear, a deep strike to the Kuiper Belt. Intercept whatever was coming before it could mass inside the system. I was back in the war room with Harlan, Kane, and the remaining fleet officers. The holomap showed our ragged fleet, barely 30% of what we had before Saturn. "We can't fight them head-on anymore," Harlan said flatly. "We need to hit them where they're staging, force them to scatter." "And if we fail?" one captain asked. "Then Earth is finished." I volunteered again. Of course I did. The Ravager 1 had been refitted once more. Patched, rebuilt. This would be her last mission. We all knew it. My squad was down to the bone. Kane, Mason, Juno, 3 others who'd survived Saturn by sheer guts and luck. "This one's different," I told them in the ready room. "We're not just hitting a ship or a station. We're going into their heart." "And if we don't come back?" Mason asked. I stared at him. "Then at least Earth has a chance to fight another day." We launched into the black with the ghost of Saturn still burning in our wake. It was the longest jump I'd ever flown, through uncharted voids, radiation storms, gravitational distortions. The Ravager groaned and creaked, systems straining against the cold of deep space. Then, in the shadow of a frozen gas giant we didn't even have a name for, we found it. A fleet unlike anything we'd ever seen. Dozens, no hundreds of alien warships, some kilometers long, ringed with living armor, bristling with weapons we didn't even understand. And at the center, a construct the size of a small moon. It wasn't just a ship. It was a factory, a breeding ground, a colony hive, building more warships by the hour. The sight hit me harder than anything before. "This is it," I whispered. "The source." "We blow this thing," Kane said, voice low. "We cripple their whole advance." "Or we die trying," Juno added. Everyone nodded. No fear. Not anymore. Just grim purpose. We drifted in under cloak, threading the needle between sensor nets and patrols. The closer we got, the stranger the construct became. The hull wasn't metal. It was organic, alive, pulsating with sickly light. Alien forms scurried across its surface, engineers, drones, things we'd never catalogued. "They're building entire fleets here," Mason breathed. "This thing's a goddamn womb." I felt cold all over. "This is why they came," I said. "Not just to conquer Earth, to seed the system, to turn it into their hive." And we were the only ones close enough to stop it. We found a docking strut and cut our way in. Inside, the hive was a nightmare. The walls were flesh and bone, shot through with living tech. The air was thick and humid. Every breath tasted like rot. We moved fast, rifles up, charges prepped. First contact came near what looked like a birthing chamber. Dozens of half-grown war beasts suspended in gel. The guards were new, massive, armored, almost impossible to kill. We fought like demons. I burned through 2 mags before the first went down. Juno took a plasma bolt to the leg. Mason lost 2 fingers to acid spray. But we pushed on. We reached what our scans guessed was the central power core. A massive chamber. Walls alive with neural links, energy conduits running like arteries. In the center, a neural nexus, throbbing with sick light. "This controls the hive," Mason gasped. "Kill this, we kill everything." We planted every charge we had, and then hell broke loose. Alarms shrieked in frequencies that made my skull ache. Drone swarms poured in, hundreds of them, clawed and shrieking. "Hold the line," I shouted. We fought with everything, rifles, knives, fists. Juno went down first, dragged under a pile of drones. Kane lost his good arm to a blade swipe, but kept firing one-handed. I killed until my gun jammed, then used it as a club. The charges were set. Timer ticking. We made it to the Ravager with seconds to spare. Half the squad gone. Kane barely conscious. Mason missing an eye. The hive erupted behind us, a wave of flame and biological detonation that lit the black. Alien ships scattered, crippled. Their heart was gone. The jump home was a nightmare, barely held together, bleeding from 6 wounds. But when we broke back into Mars orbit, the comms lit up. The enemy was retreating, scattered, disorganized. No new ships coming through the outer system. We'd done it. I sat in the med bay, staring at Earth. Kane was in the next bunk, missing half of himself but alive. "You think they'll be back?" he asked. I looked out at the stars. "They always come back," I said. "But next time, so will we." Because they came to conquer Earth, and we turned them to dust. The official report said the Battle of the Kuiper Hive was a strategic success. High Command drafted a neat summary. Critical infrastructure destroyed, enemy fleets scattered, systems secured. For now. The truth was uglier. We'd barely made it back. The Ravager one was a wreck. Kane was missing an arm and half a lung. Mason couldn't see out of one eye. Juno wasn't coming back at all. We left too many men behind in that hell. And worse, When we returned to Fort Wallace, the celebrations were muted. The war wasn't over. No one believed that for a second. The enemy wasn't finished. I stood in the Fleet Memorial Hall a few days after we docked, staring at the wall of names. 3 new columns since Saturn. Another 2 since the Hive strike. Thousands of names etched into cold metal. I found Juno's name. I stood there longer than I should have. She'd been good. Too good for this damn war. Kane found me there. "You're limping," he said. "You're missing an arm," I shot back. He smirked, the old spark still in him. "Doctors say they can fit me with a new one. Not the same, but it'll shoot." "Good." He fell quiet, eyes on the wall. "You think we bought enough time?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know. The next morning I got called to the war room. Harlan was there, grimmer than usual. His hair had gone pure gray since Saturn. He didn't waste words. "We've got a new problem," he said. I leaned forward. "What kind of problem?" He brought up a new holo feed, grainy footage from deep recon drones. An alien ship, enormous, bigger than anything we'd faced. Not a dreadnought, not a carrier, something else. No weapons, no escorts, just drifting slowly toward the inner system. "What the hell is that?" I asked. "We don't know," Harlan said, "but Intel calls it a seed ship." The word tasted wrong. "What's it carrying?" Harlan's face hardened. "Colonization bioforms. They're trying to seed the planets, not conquer, not occupy, transform." My stomach turned cold. "If that thing reaches Earth won't survive," Harlan finished. "Not as we know it." We had a month. Maybe less. Every ship we had was already damaged. Every crew exhausted. But we had no choice. We had to stop it. Operation Iron Crucible was the most desperate plan yet. Not a fleet action, not an ambush, a suicide intercept. One ship would get close enough to plant fusion charges on the seed ship's core. No room for error, no room for escape. Harlan looked me dead in the eyes. "You're the only one who's pulled this kind of op off before." "I'll go," I said without hesitation. We didn't have the Ravager one anymore. She was dead. Instead, they gave us a prototype, Ravager Black, a stealth corvette built from reverse-engineered alien tech. Faster, meaner, one last gamble. The crew was skeleton, just 4 of us, me, Kane, Mason, and a new pilot, Wren, ex-military, sharp as hell, cold as ice. "You all know the odds," I told them in the launch bay. No one blinked. Wren just said, "Let's kill the bastards." We launched alone. No escort, no backup. The seed ship was already passing Neptune orbit, a black monolith against the stars. We chased it for 6 days, burning engines to the red, running cold to stay off their sensors. Every day it got bigger. Every scan revealed more horrors. Bioorganic pods, growth tendrils, massive life signs pulsing inside. It wasn't just a ship. It was a planet killer. We breached on day 7, slid through a vent shaft near the aft conduits. Inside, it was worse than the Hive. The walls were alive, pulsing, breathing. The air was wet, full of spores. Every surface writhed with alien growth. "They're already birthing," Mason whispered, scanning the walls. Pods the size of tanks were forming. Infant war beasts, spore clouds, God knows what else. We pushed forward. It didn't take long for them to find us. First contact was a swarm of spore drones. Small, fast, vicious. We cut them down, but they kept coming. Kane fought like a demon, one-armed but unrelenting. Mason planted charges as we moved. Wren handled nav, guiding us through the shifting maze of corridors. Then we reached the core. It was monstrous. A pulsing neural heart, larger than any chamber we'd seen, connected to tendrils that stretched throughout the ship, feeding the entire ecosystem. "This is it," Mason said. "We bring this down, the whole ship dies." We planted the fusion cores. Then the real enemy came. Guardians, massive armored beasts, more machine than flesh, taller than a man, stronger than any exosuit. The fight was brutal. Kane lost half his other arm. Mason took a gut wound. I burned through every mag I had. Ren dragged Mason clear as I covered them, blade in one hand, plasma torch in the other. We set the final charge with seconds left. The escape was chaos. We ran blind, chased by walls of drones and gas, made it to the Ravager Black with seconds to spare. As we launched, the seed ship erupted, a wave of light and biomatter spiraling into the void, destroyed. When we limped back to Mars, we barely had a ship left, but the seed ship was gone. Earth would live another day. I sat in the Valkyrie's medbay again, alone. Kane was in critical care. Mason might not wake up. Ren stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You think this ends it?" she asked. I shook my head. "They'll come again." She nodded. "Then we'll be ready." Because they came to conquer Earth, and we turned them to dust. They called it a victory. The seed ship was gone. The immediate threat to Earth neutralized. The propaganda feed spun it as a turning point. Fleet Command issued medals. The few surviving ships were paraded around Mars' orbit. But it wasn't victory. It was a stay of execution. I knew it the second I read the deep scan reports 2 weeks after the op. Alien transmissions, still coming from deep space. The outer probes, silent for months, were suddenly going dark. Entire sectors gone dark. Someone, or something, was still out there, watching, waiting. And then the worst signal came in. Harlan called me to the war room again. His face was older now. Lines cut deep across his features. He looked like he hadn't slept since the seed ship op. "Sit," he said. I did. He brought up a transmission, encrypted, shaky, a priority code flagged from the far edge of the solar system. It was from one of our Black Ops probes, Sentinel-9, stationed beyond the Oort cloud. The message was simple. Object inbound, speed, FTL slip signature detected, non-fleet design, massive, unknown energy profile. I stared at the readout. "How massive?" Harlan exhaled. "Size of a moon. We didn't have FTL. Not yet. We weren't supposed to for another century. The enemy had just crossed that line. This wasn't just another fleet. This wasn't a dreadnought or a seed ship. This was their final weapon." "They're desperate," Kane rasped from his medbed when I told him. "They know they can't win conventionally, so they're throwing the last card." He coughed hard. The graft on his lung was holding, but barely. "What are they sending?" he asked. I didn't answer. I didn't know. Not yet. Fleet Command called it Project Black Sun, an alien superweapon, purpose unknown, trajectory, direct for Earth, ETA, 3 weeks. We scrambled every resource we had left. The fleet, crippled as it was, rushed to fortify Mars orbit and lunar command. Earth's defense grid was being rebuilt in a panic, but it wouldn't be ready in time. We had one chance. Intercept it before it reached Earth orbit. Problem was, nothing could catch it. It was moving on a slipstream trajectory, half in real space, half out. No human ship could match that kind of speed. Until Ren gave us a solution. She called me to the Ravager Black's hangar, what was left of it. "I've been running sims," she said. "Using the alien FTL fragments we recovered from the hive." She gestured to a battered test core rigged into a modified drive housing. "It won't hold for long, but if we piggyback the slipstream, we can intercept," I finished. She nodded. "It's suicide," she added. I smiled grimly. Of course it is. There was no question who would go. I was still recovering, but I could stand. Kane, despite the grafts, demanded to be included. "I'm still breathing," he growled. That's all that matters. Mason was out. Coma. Wren would pilot. We'd take a stripped-down, ultra-light version of the Ravager, a ship that barely qualified as a corvette anymore. No armor, minimal weapons, just speed, stealth, and one shot. Harlan met us in the hangar before launch. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. I looked him in the eye. "If we don't, Earth's finished," he nodded once. "Godspeed." We launched on day -19. FTL piggyback engaged. Slipstream drive burning hotter than hell. The stars stretched and warped around us, colors bleeding together. None of us spoke for the first 12 hours. We knew what this was. On day -16, we caught up to it. Project Black Sun. It wasn't a ship. It was a living construct, part planetoid, part machine, part biological mass the size of a small moon. It pulsed with energy, massive gravitational distortions warping space around it. The scans made my blood run cold. "It's not meant to fight," Wren whispered. "It's meant to consume." She ran the bioscans. "It's a terraformer, a corruptor. If it reached Earth's atmosphere, it would spread a nanoplague, bioconvert the entire planet into a living hive. No survivors. No Earth." We plotted an intercept course. There was no docking this time. We'd have to breach from the outside, plant the last of our fusion warheads at key points along the core, then detonate and try to escape. Day -14, we made our approach. The outer surface was a nightmare. Black bone structures, living membranes, tendrils that lashed through space like serpents. Drones swarmed in waves, thousands. We drifted in, engines dark, under cloak. Then we breached. Inside was like nothing we'd seen. A planet's worth of life, all wrong. Flesh corridors that stretched for kilometers. Chambers the size of cities, full of growing bioforms. I couldn't even classify most of them. They weren't just soldiers. They were ecosystem seeds, genetic converters, spore clouds, warped things built from stolen human DNA. We moved fast, planting charges at key junctions. Wren coordinated from the ship, feeding us the map in real time. Kane fought like a man possessed, one arm gone, moving like a predator. On day -13, everything went to hell. The core of Black Sun was aware. It began shifting, rewriting itself in response to our presence. Walls moved, corridors closed behind us, and then the true guardians arrived. We called them harvesters. Titanic beasts, 3 stories tall, blade limbs, living armor. I emptied 3 mags into the first. Kane finished it with a shaped charge. But they kept coming. We lost the first timer charge in a collapsing corridor, had to double back, fight through a horde of drones. Wren's voice crackled in our ears. "You have to move! The core's activity is spiking, it's accelerating!" "How long?" I demanded. 4 days. Tops. If you don't kill it by then, it hits Earth." We pushed deeper, lost track of time. Blood loss made my vision swim. Kane collapsed twice, dragged himself up both times. We planted the last 2 warheads in the primary neural chamber, a place so alien I couldn't describe it. A vast eye opened in the center, watching us, alive, sentient. It spoke, not in words, in images, visions of Earth, covered in black tendrils, skies burning, oceans turned to sludge, a dead world, a world remade in its image. I stared it down, raised the detonator. "No," I growled. "Not today." We sprinted for exfil. Harvesters swarmed. I lost count of how many we killed. By the time we reached the breach point, I was running on fumes. Kane could barely stand. Wren screamed over comms, "Get clear, now!" We launched with seconds to spare. The detonator lit, and Black Sun erupted. The explosion was like a newborn star, tearing through slipspace. We barely escaped the wavefront. The ship was half destroyed, systems fried, hull breached. Wren's hands were burned to the bone. Kane was unconscious. I was bleeding out. But we were alive, and Black Sun was dead. We drifted in the void for days. No engines, no comms. Then the rescue signal came. A battered destroyer, the Iron Lance, swept us up. When we made it back to Mars' orbit, Earth was still there. Blue, whole, alive. I stood on the deck of the Iron Lance, staring down at the world we'd saved. Wren stood beside me, hands in grafts. Kane was in a medical coma. The price had been paid. Too high. But worth it. Harlan met us on arrival. No speeches, just a nod. "You did it," he said. I looked at the stars. "They'll come again," I said quietly. He nodded. "Then so will we. Because they came to conquer Earth, and we turned them to dust." The skies were quiet for the first time in nearly a year. No dreadnought signatures, no hive signals, no cursed slipstream drives rippling through the outer system, just stars. And Earth. I stood in the observation deck of Fort Wallace, wrapped in dress blacks I hadn't worn since the first days of the war. The fabric felt wrong on my skin. Too clean for what we'd been through. Too neat. Outside the reinforced glass, Earth turned slowly below. Whole, blue, fragile. Alive. Kane wasn't here. Still in medical coma, hooked up to machines keeping his broken body breathing. Wren was off her feet, skin grafts healing, nervous system damage from the escape burn. Doc said she'd live, maybe even fly again. Mason never woke up. His name was etched now on the wall alongside Juno, Briggs, Reyes, and the thousands more who'd bled out in the void. I could still see their faces when I closed my eyes. Fleet Command wanted a ceremony. A final victory celebration, they called it. I didn't believe in final anymore. The ceremony was held in Mars' high orbit, aboard the battered remains of the Vanguard station. Generals, admirals, politicians flown in from Earth. Fresh-faced news crews broadcasting the event to a weary planet hungry for good news. The speech was pure PR. Against overwhelming odds, humanity endured. Through sacrifice and resolve, we have proven. Earth stands unconquered. I tuned it out. When they called my name, I walked to the podium, movements stiff from the dozens of healing wounds stitched across my body. Harlan handed me the medal, some new thing they'd minted for this war. Didn't matter. He squeezed my shoulder. "You earned it." I looked him in the eye. So did too many who didn't come back. I didn't make a speech. I said 6 words. We fight, we bleed, we live. That was enough. After the ceremony, I found Wren sitting alone on the outer deck, her arms swaddled in healing mesh. She nodded as I approached. "World's still turning," she said quietly. "For now." We stared at the stars. She spoke first. "You think they're really done?" I didn't answer right away. Finally, I said, "They're bloodied, scattered, but not extinct." Her jaw tightened. "So it's not over." "It never is." That night, back in my quarters, Harlan sent me an encrypted file, a single deep space scan. Beyond the outer system, deep, deep beyond, faint energy signatures. Weak, fragmented, but real, remnants. A knock on my door. Kane, standing with the help of a cane, wrapped in braces, eyes hard as steel. "You see it?" he asked. "I saw." He grinned, broken teeth, scarred jaw. "Then we've got work to do." 6 months later, the fleet wasn't parading anymore. No one on Earth really knew. The media kept feeding peace stories. War's over. Victory for humanity. But in the black, we knew better. The Black Guard was born, an unofficial unit, off the books. Veterans of the Hive, Saturn, Black Sun. Ragged, scarred, hardened, not built for show, built to hunt. Our job was simple. Seek, strike, destroy, hunt down the last embers of the enemy before they could light another fire. We flew in old hulls, patched with scavenged alien tech. Wren led the flight wing, her nerves rebuilt, hands steady again. Kane was XO, still limping, still fighting. I took command. Our first op hit a drifting hive fragment near Pluto orbit, infant bioforms in stasis. We didn't talk. We burned it to ash. Second op, an old dreadnought carcass rigged as a beacon. Trap. We went in anyway, fought our way out with half the hull gone. Kane laughed as he crawled from the wreckage. Just another Tuesday. Word spread. More veterans came. Pilots, gunners, Black Ops ghosts from missions that never made the news. They didn't want medals. They wanted payback. The enemy had learned too. Smarter, meaner. They didn't fight in fleets anymore. They fought in shadows, sleeper pods, viral codes seeded in old systems, corruptive spores hidden in asteroid belts. It wasn't a war of ships now. It was a war of knives in the dark. Earth didn't notice. Earth rebuilt. Skyscrapers rose. Commerce restarted. Politicians smiled for the cameras. But in orbit, the Blackguard flew. We lost people. Too many. But every time we cut out another infection, another nest, another seed pod, Earth stayed safe a little longer. And I kept the same ritual. Every time we burned another threat, I'd stand in the wreckage and whisper the words, "You came to conquer Earth. We turned you to dust." Years passed. I stopped counting. Kane's hair went white, his scars multiplied. Wren led her own strike wing now, twice as fast, twice as deadly. And me, still fighting. I got an encrypted message, one cold shift. Deep drift signal detected. Old code. Europa sector. I smiled grimly. Europa. Full circle. We launched at once. Found a drifting spire. Alien tech fused with human wreckage. Inside, something worse than a seed ship. A transmitter. Calling out. We destroyed it. But as it burned, one last signal burst through. A frequency I'd never heard. Beyond the system. Deeper. Older. When we returned, Harlan was waiting. Older now. Slower. But his eyes were sharp. "You heard it," he said. I nodded. "They're not done." "No," he agreed. "They never will be." The cycle was clear now. War never ends. It just changes. And so the Blackguard kept flying. Through the black. Through blood. Through silence. Because they had come to conquer Earth. And we would keep turning them to dust. Forever.